everyone. Welcome to Math Case Signiflings. My name is Sinifon Ime. In today's class, we'll be discussing differentiation, and this is a topic I love so much. What is differentiation? Differentiation has to do with the rate of change of one quantity toward another. But before we solve any problems on differentiation or how to solve differentiation, there are some things I will be using, things like functions, variables. So I would love you to know what functions are. What are functions? Functions is the relation between one or more variables. And what are these variables? Variables are unknown quantity. For example, we have x, we have y, we have p, and etc. So before going to the topic for today, there are some notations for what? Derivative. Not every time examiner will be asking you find the differential coefficient of this function, but they can always ask you find f prime of what? X, y prime, dy, dx. All of this means differential coefficient of that function. So let's start. How can we differentiate a particular function? For example, I'm giving a function like f of x to be what? Ax raised to the power of 1 in. How can I differentiate this function? First and foremost, I'll write that my f prime of x, this f prime of x is telling the examiner that I'm differentiating this function. And what am I going to do with the function? The first thing, multiply the power of x with the coefficient of x so that you have what? N times what? A into what? X. Into what? X raised to the power of what? A. And the next thing you do is to subtract 1 from the power. I repeat myself, multiply first the power with the coefficient and subtract 1 from the power. But you can always have this concept in mind. Anytime you hear about differentiation, the first thing that should come to your mind is what? T and T. This is a concept that if you have in mind, you will never forget how to differentiate a function. And what does this entail? The first T stands for what? Times. And the second T stands for what? T. How will I apply T and T in this function now? The first thing is to what? Times the power with the what? The coefficient. And I take 1 from the power. Multiply the power with the coefficient, that is n times the a, and do what? Take 1 from the power. With this concept, you will never forget how to differentiate a function. So let's see how we can actually solve another problem under what? Differentiation. If a function like this is given to me, f of x equal to what? X raised to the power of 6, and I'm asked to find the differential coefficient of this function. The first thing I'm going to do, I write solution just to make my work neat, and I do what? I say that my f prime of x, or my differential of x with respect to what? X. That is, I'm differentiating this function that I was given with respect to what? This variable, this unknown quantity. So that I will have what? Remember the times and take. The first thing you do is to apply the concept of what? Time. So I will multiply the power with the coefficient. What's the coefficient of this variable? Is what? 1. So that I will have what? 6 times 1, which is what? 6. I repeat my x. The next thing is to do what? Take 1 from the power. So I write my 6 minus 1. So that my f prime of x will be what? 6x. Will be what? 6x raised to the power of what? 5. Let's pick one example to close down the power of differentiation. So what if I have my f of x to be what? The square root of what? X. Sorry, I have my f of x to be what? The square root of what? X. I can always say solution that my f prime of x will be what? Remember from the law of indices that I can write this to be what? And I can write this to be what? X raised to the power 1 over 2. So that my f prime will be what? Multiply the power with the coefficient, and the coefficient here is 1. So I will have 1 over 2x. 1 over 2x raised to the power of what? 1 over 2 minus 1. Let me shift the concept of these indices so that we can have space to explain this. I remember I said that the square root of x can also be written as what? 1 over 2. the concept of indices, so that I have what? Now my f prime of x will be what? X. Multiply the power with the coefficient, so that I'll have 1 over 2 raised to the power of what? 1 over 2 minus 1. Remember the times I take. The first thing is to do what? Multiply the power with the coefficient, then subtract 1 from the power, so that I will have what? 1 over 2x. Half, if you apply your LCM here, you have what? Minus 1 over 2. So this can be your answer. And there are other rules we have to look at